After you have added your quote, you are going to briefly explain what the quote means. By briefly, I mean you are going to spend about 1 to 2 sentences writing out what you can conclude from it. How does what the quote is saying relate to the overall argument? So, if you were going to write about the expectations of beauty of women in America, you would explain how your quote relates to that topic. Maybe your quote uncovers the ways in which the expectations are casted upon women. Maybe your quote goes deeper into how race can play a role into these expectations. I know sometimes your quote can seem obvious in what it's stating, however, it's always best to try to draw a greater conclusion from it as opposed to just leaving the quote unexplained and moving on. After you have connected your quote to your message, you are going to now insert your own opinion. Previously, I explained what the quote means. Now I am going to be the judge on whether the meaning of the quote is valid or not. I would tell you whether I agree with a quote or disagree with a quote without explicitly stating agree or disagree in your paragraph. Let's go back to the example about the expectations of women and how we have a quote about how race plays a role in what expectations are pushed upon women. Since I am talking about issues concerning womanhood as well as race, I know that there is a term that emphasizes this. It is called intersectionality, which is when discrimination or oppression of social categorizations can overlap. It is a fancy word that basically means that if a woman faces discrimination and someone who's a person of color faces discrimination, then a woman of color faces even more discrimination because she is both a person of color and a woman. It's finding terms that can encompass your message that can really drive your point. Let's say you're focusing on race relations in America and how institutions can be discriminatory. You could label it as systematic discrimination as opposed to just discrimination. Defining your message into one term is a great way for you to think analytically about your topic. If you had me before, the terms that we learned for theories would include feminism, heteronormativity, disillusionment, and the American dream. These all can fit into your paragraph if it defines your quote or the message that you are trying to get across. However, sometimes we don't have a term that describes what we are explaining. What do we do then? The same thing, to be honest. You would want to explain the repercussions or some sort of conclusion from your quote. Maybe you didn't know about the term systematic discrimination, however, you knew that it existed. You tell me about the existence of it and tell me the repercussions of it. So let's go back to our voting example. If I had a quote about why voting is a part of what makes a democracy, then I would explain how a democracy reflects American ideology, as well as why voting is an important responsibility that all Americans need to take part in. So far, we have gone over examples of what happens when we support the quote. This is going to reflect either 2 or 3 of your body paragraphs, depending on how you want to structure it. For your refutation paragraphs, you should be doing the same thing in terms of introducing your quote and explaining it. However, after you have explained the meaning of your quote, you would point out any inconsistencies or any point that the author missed to make it invalid and to make it so that I know that you're disagreeing with the quote. Either way, building your paragraphs is like playing with Legos. Each sentence should connect in some way. You shouldn't be skipping topics because it's like putting Legos together that don't belong together yet or maybe even ever. Using conjunctive adverbs can help you achieve this. One way to make sure that your sentences are building off of each other is with the use of a semicolon. The semicolon button is located next to the L on your keyboard. It is used to connect two related sentences together. Let's look at an example. Voting is an essential part to a democracy. However, some people in the United States do not believe that voting matters. So, the first independent clause is voting is an essential part to a democracy. The second independent clause is some people in the United States do not believe voting matters. These clauses are related because the second clause is alluding to the fact that some people are not doing something that is essential for a democracy. With the use of a semicolon and a conjunctive adverb, which is the word however, I can tell the reader that I am creating a cohesive paragraph by connecting these sentences. Let's take a look at some conjunctive adverbs. This is just a fancy term that means words that help you connect the sentence or independent clause before to the sentence or independent clause coming after. These are some of the most popular conjunctive adverbs. You have therefore, moreover, furthermore, however, otherwise, meanwhile, and thereafter. You would use therefore if you are drawing a conclusion from the independent clause that came after. Moreover and furthermore are used when you have more to add before making a full conclusion. It's like a replacement for the word and. However and otherwise are used to contrast ideas. Rewind to the previous slide if you need a refresher of how that works. Meanwhile and thereafter show time differences. So an example of this is if I said, Americans throw away tons of food each year. Meanwhile, there are many Americans who still go to bed hungry. You know what I don't want to see in your paragraph? The words "this means" in your essay. Okay. Let's work towards getting rid of these words. It is really simple. If your sentence looks like this means increasing polling stations can increase voter turnout due to increased accessibility as well as decreased wait times. It should be changed to this. Increased polling stations can increase voter turnout due to increased accessibility as well as decreased wait times. It's just deleting those two words. All right, thank you so much